They say age is just a number, but when it comes to Meghan Markle, that number might not be telling the truth. Because according to royal biographer Tom Bower, Meghan's official backstory doesn't just have gaps, it may be running on an entirely different timeline Meghan has built her image on. Reinvention Hollywood darling, then royal disruptor, then global humanitarian, then the ultimate self-made survivor. But here's the twist no one saw coming: her real birth year might be the biggest performance of her life. It starts with an old issue of 17 magazine, a 1997 edition, in it afresh. Faced Meghan Markle is listed as 21 years old. Do the math. That would put her close to 50 in 2025, not 44, not forever 30-something. And that one small number changes everything. Her early auditions, her career timeline, even the speed of her royal fairy tale. And it doesn't stop there. Her own father has hinted that her childhood memories don't line up with the version sold to the public industry insiders. Quietly claims she trimmed years off her age to fit Hollywood's brutal rules. And the palace completely silent, because once you start questioning Meghan's timeline, every photo, every milestone, every perfectly timed smile starts to feel a little too polished. So buckle up, because over the next few minutes, we're diving into what could be the biggest royal rewrite since The Crown. This isn't gossip, it's a chronological crime scene. And by the end, you'll be left with one uncomfortable question: if Meghan Markle's age isn't what she says it is, what else isn't? Every mystery has a smoking gun, and in this case, it wasn't a palace memo or a leaked email, it was a glossy page from a 1997 issue of 17 magazine, where a young Meghan appears flashing her familiar smirk, introduced as a 21-year-old student from Los Angeles, even though her official age at the time should have been 16. That single number turned the internet into a forensic lab, with Reddit threads exploding, royal watchers pulling out calculators, and even Tom Bower stating the math doesn't lie. The birth year does, because if the magazine was right, Meghan wasn't born in 1981 but closer to 1975 or 1976. Meaning when she was auditioning for her first roles, she wasn't a rising star in her 20s, she was already approaching 30. And in Hollywood, age isn't just a number, it's currency. Every year older means fewer roles, closed doors, and headlines quietly shifting from up and coming to past her prime. So the theory goes that her timeline wasn't outright lied about, just creatively edited to sell youth and ambition. Especially since the magazine was never retracted, only quietly vanished from archives with no explanation from 17. And when her father Thomas Markle says he remembers her being in her 20s, even earlier than that, the timeline doesn't just bend, it breaks. If that 17 magazine story is true, then the real question is what else might be hiding in Meghan Markle's royal past. Drop a comment if you think that magazine clue cracked the surface. Because once her father started talking, the foundation didn't just crack, it shook. Thomas Markle didn't just raise Meghan, he remembers her, and his version of her timeline looks nothing like the one printed on royal letterhead in interviews. He said things that made even veteran royal reporters pause, claiming she was working full-time when she supposedly should have still been in school, recalling birthdays, graduations, and family milestones that never lined up. And when he saw her official birth year repeated across royal biographies, he reportedly said, "That's not the Meghan I knew now, let's." Be honest, Thomas Markle isn't exactly welcome in palace circles, but even critics admit he has receipts, old photos. School paperwork records details that quietly suggest Meghan may have lived a few extra years before her official debut as a wide-eyed actress chasing her dream. And here's the twist, no one expected. Neighbours from her old Los Angeles neighbourhood have echoed similar memories. One even told a tabloid she was always older than she said, "We just didn't care, she was ambitious." That single line lit the fuse for what the internet now calls Agegate. Because if her own father and longtime neighbours are hinting the timeline was adjusted, it raises an uncomfortable question: what else in her royal fairy tale was edited for the cameras? One thing is clear, the math isn't the only thing that feels off. Her memory lane seems to have GPS issues too. And if you think that's bad, wait until you see how Hollywood may have helped make it all work. Because if Meghan Markle had a superpower before marrying into royalty, it wasn't charm, it was rebranding. Somehow she convinced Hollywood she was a fresh new face, while some say she was already blowing out candles for her 30th birthday. Let's get real. Hollywood treats age like a loaded weapon. Actresses don't lose roles because they can't act, they lose them because of their birth year. 20-somethings get worshipped. 30-somethings get told to pivot into producing. So when Meghan's Ursum suddenly appeared a few years later, insiders say it wasn't an accident, it was strategy. She understood the game. Casting directors love undiscovered talent, and Meghan sold that image, perfectly polished, confident, playing the role of someone just getting started, even though she'd already been grinding for years by the time Suits made her a household name. She wasn't a fresh graduate chasing her first break, she was a seasoned player finally getting the close-up she'd been waiting for. And here's where things get interesting. Old agency bios and acting databases reportedly listed conflicting ages. Until they didn't, they were quietly updated or vanished altogether right before her royal romance went public. Coincidence, or a perfectly timed digital cleanup of some inconvenient math? Because by the time she walked down that aisle, the world wasn't meeting a 40-something working actress, it was falling in love with a 30-something Cinderella. Meghan didn't just play the Hollywood game, she mastered it, and then carried that same strategy straight into Buckingham Palace. But when casting tactics collide with the crown, the truth has a way of slipping through the cracks. And in Meghan's case, those cracks are starting to look more like craters. When Meghan Markle stepped into the royal spotlight, the world assumed she left Hollywood behind. But what she really did was bring the entire PR playbook with her, and suddenly even the palace seemed unsure where reality ended. And image management began. Because this is where things get royally strange. Meghan's official timeline, the one on Buckingham Palace's website, echoed in press releases and polished interviews, started quietly shifting old bios, disappeared age references, vanished archived articles about her pre-royal life were edited, scrubbed, or led to dead ends. And here's where it really starts to unravel. Researchers digging through her early charity work, old acting Ursums, even college alumni notes, found gaps big enough to drive a royal carriage through. Events that were said to happen when she was 22 were backed by documents dated 6 years earlier. It's like trying to solve a puzzle where half the pieces have been digitally altered. Even Tom Bower didn't sugarcoat it, calling Meghan's official story a polished production with entire scenes missing. Translation: someone's been rewriting the script, and it didn't come from Buckingham Palace. And while the palace may be experts at silence, they're no match for the internet. Every scrubbed record, every edited bio, every vanished file leaves a trail, and royal watchers have followed those breadcrumbs straight back to Meghan's PR operation. Because behind the palace gates, this wasn't just a fairy tale romance, it was a launch campaign. And when royal protocol collides with Hollywood editing, the result isn't authenticity, it's fiction in couture. But stay with me, because the next chapter goes beyond rewritten timelines and straight into rewritten biology. And what comes next makes the age debate look like amateur hour. Every fairy tale needs a perfect ending, and for Meghan that ending was Archie Harrison Mountbatten Windsor, the baby meant to seal her royal happily ever after. Except the story of Archie's birth reads less like a medical chart and more like a Netflix script polished by crisis PR official palace. Statements painted everything as flawless, calm mother, glowing father, discreet hospital, zero drama. But behind the velvet curtain, Tom Bower and several hospital insiders hinted at a very different version. One that sounded closer to House of Cards than a royal birth announcement. Questions swirled around how Meghan reportedly had 2 epidurals, an unusually fast labour, and a same-day exit from a high-security ward that normally keeps new mothers under observation for at least 48 hours. One nurse allegedly joked that the timeline moved faster than the royal motorcade itself. Then came the photos, Meghan in heels, smiling confidently on the palace steps. Barely 2 days later, supporters called its strength. Skeptics called it mathematically improbable, because when every moment of a pregnancy feels carefully staged, people start asking who's really directing the scene. And the questions didn't stop there. The secrecy surrounding the birth certificate, the missing medical specifics, conflicting travel reports, each carefully worded no comment echoed louder than an explanation. If this was truly the most joyful royal moment in decades, why was it handled like a classified operation? Maybe it wasn't just about privacy, Maybe it was about controlling the image, the timing, and the narrative that tied everything together. Because when the story doesn't fit the facts, you don't rewrite the facts, you rewrite the story. And once again, Meghan proves she knows how to edit better than anyone else. But hold on, if even her motherhood timeline stretches reality, what does that say about the empire she's built, since by the time Meghan crossed the Atlantic, she wasn't just marrying a prince, she was marrying a market opportunity. From the moment that engagement ring hit the cameras, her Hollywood instincts kicked in. This wasn't about tiaras, it was about trademarks. Look closely, and you'll see the pattern. One week she's the humble outsider surviving the British snub. The next, she's the fearless activist, redefining royalty. Every outfit, every interview, every carefully framed photo walkabout, straight out of a Beverly Hills PR playbook. Insiders even call it the Markle method. Turn every headline, good or bad, into a character arc. Criticism becomes courage. Missteps become misunderstandings. Silence becomes a strategic pause for sympathy. And when public opinion dips, cue the charity photo op or the surprise podcast drop. Even the Oprah interview felt less like confession and more like content strategy, lighting language, pacing, nothing accidental. Meghan wasn't being interviewed, she was relaunching. She shed her royal highness the way a brand drops a failed logo. Out went the palace, in came the production deals, the new podcast, the Netflix doc. Each episode, another chapter in the rebranding of Meghan 2.0. But here's the kicker: the harder she polished the image, the more cracks appeared beneath it. The internet didn't buy the Saint script, it smelled spin. Because when every gesture looks rehearsed, authenticity vanishes faster than royal approval ratings. Meghan didn't just leave the monarchy, she monetized it. The Duchess became a startup. And the product was herself. But when you build an empire on editing, there's one rule you can't escape. Eventually, the audience wants the uncut version. And when the dust finally settles on Meghan Markle's rewritten timeline, one truth is undeniable. This wasn't the palace controlling her story, she scripted it herself. The question is Meghan the ultimate PR genius or the biggest royal manipulator of our time? Sound off. Who's buying her version of events? Every missing year, every polished headline, every miraculously timed moment paints the same picture. Meghan wasn't just living a royal romance, she was producing it. And like every Hollywood production, it came with retakes, edits, and an ending carefully designed to keep her on top. The palace stayed silent, the press stayed divided, and the public stayed hooked, because even after all the contradictions, she remains the most talked about woman to walk out of Windsor Castle. But silence doesn't equal truth. It just means someone is still writing the next chapter. And if Tom Bower's revelations are even half right, Meghan's fairy tale might not just have a few cracks, it could be built on an entire foundation of fiction. So don't stop now, the real rabbit hole goes deeper. If you thought her age mystery was wild, wait until you see what she's allegedly hiding about her family. Check out our previous video. Meghan Markle has a daughter aged 30 today, Prince Harry speechless. And prepare for the twist that even left Harry stunned. Here on Star Spotlight, we don't chase headlines, we expose the stories they're afraid to print. Hit subscribe, smash that notification bell, and join the investigation. Because with Meghan Markle, every truth sounds like a conspiracy until it isn't.